Okay, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second iteration of Toastmasters D57 Masterclass. This one is entitled Using Your Toastmasters Skills to Make a Social Impact. For those of you who don't know me, I am the voice behind the box that says District 57. My name is Patricia Desaw. My home club is Rockridge Toastmasters in Oakland. I'll be your host tonight, but not speaking very much because I'm going to give the spotlight to Steve in just a minute. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we are all dealing with such a difficult time in our community, in our country. It's a very confusing and disruptive time, and we're all scrambling to adapt to a lot of change. I know almost all of us probably live here in the Bay Area and are going to be impacted by the further restrictions that we just heard today. And while many or all of you have come to enjoy the content that Steve is going to be presenting, I also know that there are other benefits to be gained in terms of maybe getting a little bit of a distraction from what's going on in the world, and also maybe feeling a sense of community with the people who are here today. So I welcome you. I welcome all of you for any and all reasons that you've joined us today. We're happy to have you, and let's enjoy learning about how to make a social impact. Perhaps now is a good a time, or the best time to do that, while enjoying the sense of community as well. Before I turn things over to Steve, give me just a second here. I just have a few programming notes. So first of all, letting you know once again that this session is being recorded and it will be available on the Toastmasters D57 website after this course. The second is, in terms of audience participation, Steve has planned for two distinct sections, at least two, within the presentation, within the hour, where he's going to engage with all of you. And so you'll have an opportunity to speak if you'd like to. And at that point, I will give everybody the ability to unmute themselves. So please save your questions and comments for those times, and or you can type any questions that you have in the chat box and I can represent those for you. And I already covered the piece about muting, so I'll just go ahead and move on. And now let's go ahead with our featured presentation of the night. And Steve, while I'm introducing you, I wonder if you would want to go ahead and pull up your slides.
Okay, I had them up. They were up, I think. Okay.
Yeah, you can just go ahead and do that again while I introduce you. So to introduce Steve's presentation, I'll start with a couple of questions. Where are you needed?
Okay.
What's happening in your community or organization that could benefit from your Toastmasters skills? Tonight, Steve today is going to present some examples of how he and other District 57 members have taken the skills that they built in Toastmasters out into the community to do a lot of good. As Steve is speaking, you're encouraged to write in, and I go ahead and I'll invite you to write it right now, to write in the chat box things that you are passionate about. It could be schools, it could be places of worship, it could be politics, or even a pet peeve. And when he gets to his first discussion section, he will address some of these. So we'd really love to hear your ideas about what you're passionate about and where you might want to make a social impact. A couple other words about Steve before we get started. Steve is the past District 57 Director from 2016 to 2017. He is currently the Vice President Education of the esteemed Oakland 88 Club. He is currently helping coordinate the Speechcraft program for San Quentin inmates, which you're going to hear more about. And he's the organizer and moderator of a program or an organization called Better Angels, which is a national organization helping people who disagree politically find common ground. Please help me welcome Steve. And Steve, I don't see your slides up.
Oh, you don't see them, so okay. I'm looking at them, but I guess I didn't share them.
And I can pull them up for you if you're having a problem.
I got them.
Okay.
Do you see them now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Get out of your club and make a difference. With a call to action like that, I had to attend the conference educational session. My Toastmasters friends, welcome to our webinar tonight. Distinguished Toastmaster Karen Leffler described her 11-year-old son, Kevin. Kevin was outraged because the local community, the local government, had decided to remove a traffic island that was on the busy street in the neighborhood where Kevin and his friends played. Kevin was so outraged, he did what any sensible 11-year-old would do. He walked up to his mom and he looked her in the eye and he said, "That is stupid." And he did one more thing. Kevin put together a case, made a presentation of the city council, and won. The project was scrapped, and Karen was amazed. Her 11-year-old son had a voice, spoke up for what he wanted, fought City Hall and won. Karen had never been able to speak up for herself. She had an incident early in her days in school that zapped her of her confidence. So she did what any sensible adult would do in that situation. She joined Diablo Champagne Breakfast Club and learned communication and leadership skills from Toastmasters. Karen built her skills, did great things inside of Toastmasters, and even better things outside of Toastmasters. Karen is currently an ambassador with White Pony Express. White Pony Express has a mission of eliminating poverty by delivering the abundance that is all around us to those in need. And they do it with love. As an ambassador, what Karen does is she works with corporations and partners, over 60 Contra Costa partners that serve food to over 80,000 people every year. There are over 10 million pounds of fresh, high-quality food that's rescued and delivered, providing over 7.5 million meals. Now, do you know what food rescue is? That's where organizations find food that hasn't expired yet, but it's about to be wasted. And they rescue it, they give it to people in need, and people are fed. They also do the same type of thing with clothing. They've rescued over 500,000 pieces of clothing, shoes, coats, toys, and books, distributing it to 58 community-based and mobile boutiques and partner locations. White Pony Express makes Karen's heart sing. Now, in that presentation she made in the 2014 district conference, she talked about the essence of Toastmasters. The essence of Toastmasters is jumping out of your comfort zone and changing the world. When Kevin, Karen's son, fought City Hall, speaking up for herself was out of her comfort zone. She then expanded the comfort zone to Toastmasters, expanded it further to community service, and now is feeding and clothing people with White Pony Express. The second essence of Toastmasters is that's where we go to build our skills. When we come into Toastmasters, our passion, the things that make our hearts sing, may not be ready for prime time. But it's a place where we could try things out, get evaluated, nurture our ideas, and that's when they're ready for prime time. So I'd like to talk about what made my heart sing. And the idea I had that when I came up with the idea, I just did not know what to do with it. 4 years ago, during the presidential campaign, I was struck by how communication was collapsing all around us. People couldn't have a civil discussion. People who disagreed couldn't talk to each other. And I looked at us in Toastmasters and I said, we're the largest, the most diverse organization in the world. We've got a membership of males and females, young and old, every ethnic group, every religion, every type of person we can think about, and we managed to bring it all together. We help each other build our skills, we help each other communicate each other, and we help each other take our ideas out into the community. So why can't the rest of the world do what we're doing? I talked to everybody I could talk to, and then I did what I think any sensible Toastmaster should do in a situation like that. I joined Toastmasters Leadership Club, and I made a high-performance leadership project out of it. Now, usually when you start a high-performance leadership project, you say, I want to do this, this, and this is how I was going to do it. When I talked about the project, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I had no idea how I was going to figure out a way where I could work with people to help people who disagreed find common ground. Then one day, I was in a shop and I found this USA Today. It described an organization called Better Angels. I read the article and it talked about their mission being to depolarize America by helping people who disagree politically find common ground. And I thought, that is it. That's what I'm looking for. Now, it just so happened this June 25th date was a Tuesday, and it was a Saturday when they were having a meeting in San Francisco. So I went over there and I met some people and I was pretty excited. And I said, this workshop you do where you bring people who disagree together, I want to organize one of those. Will you guys help me organize it? And Rob looked at me and he got that look like, wait a minute. You know, we've been meeting for about 6 months. You show up the first day and you want to put a workshop? They're really hard to do. I mean, we like your energy, but they're really hard to do. And I said, yeah, they probably are challenging, but you know, in Toastmasters, we get teams of people together. We do speech contests. We do training programs. Heck, we run conferences of 300 people. You know, we could put on a workshop with 12 or 15 people. And they said, okay. So 3 months later, we had one. We got 6 liberals, 6 conservatives, 2 nonpartisan moderators, and they met for 3 hours. The conversation was moderated. Nobody changed each other's mind. The people that showed up liberal went home liberal. The people that showed up conservative went home conservative. But both sides found out what makes the other side tick. That they're not arguing with evil people. They're arguing with human beings that see life differently. So then about 3 weeks later, we had another meeting in San Francisco, and that was to debrief on the workshop. And everybody thought it went really well. And then I said, well, I live in Alameda. We did the workshop in Alameda. How about if we start an alliance in Alameda? Now, a Better Angels Alliance is the equivalent of a Toastmasters club. They call them alliances, we call them clubs. And I said, we could start one in Alameda. Selfishly, I won't have to drive over the bridge, but the way the organization is going to get stronger if we build more alliances. Well, Leslie gave me the same look that Rob gave me about a month ago, or about 3 months ago. She said, all right, well, I can give you a list of names. There was one we tried to start in Orinda. It never got traction. See what you can do. It's going to be challenging. So I said to her, I said, well, this is another one that Toastmasters does real well. We have teams that start Toastmasters Club from scratch. I've probably been about 15 or 20 of those teams where you take a group of people, make them into a Toastmasters Club, and they're off and running. We can do this with Better Angels. And sure enough, we started an alliance in Alameda. Now we have one in a little town called Aromas in San Benito County. We're just getting one off the ground in El Sobrante, another one in Silicon Valley, and we're taking the first steps to start one in Berkeley. So the Toastmasters experiences that I've had taking different roles has been completely transferable to what we're doing with Better Angels. So I've talked for a few minutes, and I've talked about some things that make my heart sing. Now I'd like to know a little bit about what makes your heart sing. And I may not know how you can get started. I may not know the first steps you should take, but if you want to talk about them now, I'd love to talk about them and just see if we can figure out what you want to do. So Pat, do you have something in the chat or anybody that wants to speak up?
Welcome to do that. I'll start off with reading a few things in the chat, and thank you. We had some really great inputs in there. So some examples are turning forest waste into jobs and economic development in the Sierras. That was one. Another one was social justice, education, and climate change. Another one was a comment when you were talking about the White Pony Express. We did have a participant shared that the White Pony Express made a huge difference for the survivors of the Camp Fire, which included members of her family. So we're happy to hear that.
Oh, good. Okay.
So, and then I have another one, food justice, sustainable agriculture, supporting local farmers for a better food supply are this person's major focus areas. And I would invite either Steve, if you want to comment on any of those, or other participants to chime in.
Well, I would like to hear, now the last one you mentioned about food justice, it sounded like it's something somebody is already doing. Would they like to talk about it, or what they're doing and maybe how their Toastmasters activities are contributed to it?
So I will leave that up to the person who contributed that, if you'd like to chime in and elaborate.
Joy.
That wasn't mine. Mine was the forest waste.
Okay. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure, I would.
Okay.
I'm looking for funding for it. I started out with a very grand plan that would take about $15 million and set up facilities in 3 different counties in the Sierras using the waste from the fires. So you have beetle trees. That was already a problem that I was trying to figure out. And then the forest fires have left all kinds of burned trees, and the loggers have left all kinds of waste. All of this is going to the landfill. A lot of the healthy trees that have been cut down are being shipped to China. None of this is benefiting the people who lost everything in the fires. It's not helping the communities that are already poor. So my idea is to take all of this stuff that's either getting sold to China or sent to the landfill and turn it into jobs and economic development. A town like Paradise, which is near where my son lives, he lives right where the fire started and is a volunteer firefighter who spent the day saving people because there was no fighting that fire. Well, he lost everything. Jobs are really scarce there. And this is a lot of valuable material. The beetle trees, people like the wood. They like the wood for flooring. They like it for furniture. It has a kind of a dark, either dark gray or navy blue almost stripe in it from the beetles. And people find it attractive. The burnt wood could easily be turned into compost and mulch. The world is losing topsoil at an alarming rate. And that goes into the other question about the food justice, because the way that people are growing crops with the bare earth is not healthy. Monoculture is not healthy. Cover crops are healthy. Rebuilding the soil is healthy. And all of these things tie into each other.
Mm-hmm. So that's your passion. That's what makes your heart sing. Who could you collaborate with on that? I mean, now one thing you said was that what you're doing is similar to what the food justice people are interested in. Is there any way people who are involved with what you're involved with would collaborate with the people that are involved with the food justice?
I actually met with a producers group in Fresno months ago. And when I suggested that there was a connection between wildfires and what happens in agriculture in the Central Valley, their response was that they really hated the fact that the people in the wildfire areas were getting all the attention and taking it from them. They feel like they're competitors, when in fact, everything that happens in the mountains goes into the watershed and right into the crops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's interesting. So what I'm thinking is, one of the things about what I'm involved with Better Angels is I couldn't get to Washington, D.C. and talk to the members of Congress or talk to the president and say, hey, you guys have to get along together, get along better. I can't do that in Sacramento. But what I learned was that civility and productive discussions has to start from the ground up. Now, I don't know how that applies to your project, but I made the decision, or came to the realization, that if you and me and everybody on this call, and you know, whether on this call or in the community or whatever, if we're speaking in a better tone to our neighbors, there's a good chance it's going to move up and we'll hold the government to a higher standard. Now, is there any way something like what you're doing, Joy, could start at the ground level or start as a movement?
Oh, absolutely. I think when people understand the need for healthy soil, that could be the starting place. Because all of those burnt trees can replenish the soil, which also makes more nutritious crops. So that's one of the things, when people do the bare earth between rows of trees or between rows of monoculture kind of crops, they actually do something that people have been doing for millions of years. They've been making bricks by taking dirt and baking it in the sun. If you do that with your field, the rain, when it falls on the field, runs off. It doesn't soak in. It erodes. It doesn't feed the soil at all. There's nothing that helps to improve the nutrition in your apple tree or in your wine grapes or in whatever you're growing, because it's all running away. And if there are cover crops in there, and diverse cover crops, the root systems are what rebuild the soil. The cover crops need to have something that hasn't been already baked into a brick. And those fields that have been cooked like that, so the soil can't even absorb any moisture, those same fields are part of the cause of more impactful wildfires, because they help to reduce the amount of rain that goes into the mountains beyond those fields.
Right.
The tie-in to all of this is just amazing to me, that the people who want to be separate and feel like they're in competition with each other, that they can't see that they actually are partners. Whether they like it or not, they're partners.
Right.
Just nature itself makes them partners.
Interesting. Okay. So let's hold that for now. And then I would like to hear from the food justice person after at our next break, and see how what she's doing ties in with that. And then maybe, because Joy mentioned that, does that make sense, Pat?
Yeah, that makes sense. And just two things, Steve. So if anybody out there is trying to talk but can't for some reason, can't unmute, just send me a chat. And we'll work that out, or Eric, the co-host. And then also we got one other suggestion here, or something that somebody is passionate about that was contributed in the last couple of minutes, which is Sarah says she's interested in communication skills for young people. She's conducted a couple of Toastmasters youth leadership programs.
Okay, that's terrific, because it ties in to what I'm about to talk about. It's a different situation, different circumstances, but it ties into what I'm about to talk about. So
great. And Steve, just one more thing. The sun is going down, so you're getting a little bit darker. So I don't know if you have more light in the room.
Okay, I've got one light. Let me try it. We'll see what it looks like.
Okay. Better.
How's that?
That's better. Thanks.
Okay. I didn't know if it would be productive or not productive to turn the light on, but I'm glad it's good. So, okay, onward. Last spring, Philip Leonida, who is the civilian leader of a class in San Quentin, reached out to District 57 Toastmasters and asked for us to bring Toastmasters into San Quentin. We put together an amazing team of Toastmasters. 9 people are on the team. About 3 or 4 of us go to San Quentin every Tuesday to do a Speechcraft. We got into it because we're all Toastmasters. We want to build our communication skills, and we want opportunities to improve our skills and help the community. We had no idea what we were going to get involved with. I'm going to tell you the story about 3 of our Speechcraft people. We have no idea why they are in San Quentin. It's inappropriate to ask, but that's not why we're there anyway. So I'm going to talk about Jimmy. The first time we had Speechcraft, he got up and did his icebreaker. He said, "My name's Jimmy. I'm a thief, and I'm a drug addict." And we're sitting there, and as we're sitting there, and as Jimmy's talking, Philip, the leader, gets up, and he says, "Jimmy, you're in here because you were a thief and a drug addict, but you're more than that. And when you get released from this place, the world is going to know that you're more than a thief and a drug addict." And this went on one way or the other for about the first 3 or 4 weeks. And now when Jimmy gets up and talks, he's not talking about that part of his life. He's talking about other things. He's got into religion. He's gone into the chapel in San Quentin, and he's moved in that direction. But he's not identifying himself as a thief and a drug addict. And then there's Richard. Richard is probably in his mid 40s, maybe his late 40s, and he looks like he's in his late 50s. Richard has been through a lot. He got up and he talked about the special housing unit. It is not so affectionately known as a SHU, solitary confinement. Richard was in there for 20 months. And when he gives speeches, he talks about his fears, his anxiety, and his post-traumatic stress disorder. Never in his life has he ever been able to talk about his fears and his anxieties. And, you know, we go in there to the Speechcraft and we do some coaching, but I think as we go, it's more of a therapy session sometimes for these guys because they talk about some things they've never been able to talk about before. And then there's Vincent. Vincent is about 28 years old. He could be my son. The first time he got up and he said, it was March 17th, my daughter's second birthday, and that's the day I walked into San Quentin prison, and I've been here ever since. I'm a good dad. I know what my daughter is doing at recess. I know who her friends are. I know how she does in math. And I get to see my family once in a while, and I cherish those times. I take parenting classes, and even though I'm incarcerated, I'm a good dad. And again, we just give them a little bit of coaching and just let them talk about what they need to talk about. It's an amazing experience. If you look at the link up there, that is the Toastmasters TV. Last Tuesday, Gina Cephalo, who's on the team, did a presentation that is on the Toastmasters TV site right now, and she talks about our experiences at San Quentin. But we went in there, we thought we were doing a good deed, and this program has changed our lives. There are Speechcraft programs going on all over District 57. There's one going on in Oakland, and it's one of these projects that's available to do in any setting, but the prison setting is absolutely incredible. It's similar, or it's the same principle as the youth leadership. It's designed for people who are not in Toastmasters right now. With a youth leadership, they may join Toastmasters when they get older. Their parents might be so proud of what their kids are doing in youth leadership, they might join Toastmasters. So think about what can happen with Speechcraft. You can take that to a lot of different places and do a lot of good. Now we have a lot of members that are doing a lot of great things in our community. Teri McDonald was district director about 5 or 6 years ago in District 57. Her heart sings when you're talking about wild animals, particularly the big cats. Teri is noted for her public speaking ability, her training ability, and her ability to build teams. She can get people together, put them on a team, and do great things. With Wild Animal Sanctuary, Teri is speaking at service clubs, and soon she's going to be speaking in high schools about what she describes as a captive wildlife crisis. She serves as a docent with the Wild Animals Sanctuary and plans on joining the fundraising team, which is exactly what her skills would be suited for. So what the Wild Animal Sanctuary does is they rescue animals to give them room to live in the way that is natural for them. There are some animals that are caged and living in deplorable conditions. There are tigers that haven't seen another tiger in their whole life. The words Teri used is some tigers make it to 13 years old before they ever seen another tiger. Wild Animal Sanctuary makes Teri's heart sing. David Dye. David Dye chaired a Toastmasters Leadership Institute. He had such a good time doing that, he chaired the following district conference. David is absolutely amazing in building teams. He can build a team, he can run a conference, he can run any type of event you can imagine. He's passionate about the CCAC Chinese School in Pleasanton. That's where his children take classes. It was founded in 2003, started with about 30 students, and they now serve over 1,000. They teach math, language, and arts to both children and adults. And the place where David really shines is the fundraising galas and events they put on that he helps to organize. He's on a 7-member board. When he gets finished this year as Secretary General, he'll be Vice President next year and then President the year after. CCA Chinese School makes David's heart sing. Now, I've mentioned people that have run conferences, that have been district officers, and been in Toastmasters upward to 20 years. A lot of members of District 57 are doing a lot of great things. There's some names on here that you recognize, and there's probably names you don't recognize. They're just people that go to a meeting once a week. They may or may not be a club officer, but there's something that makes their heart sing that Toastmasters is helping them make an impact. So I'm going to open up again, and I'd like to know a little bit more about what makes your heart sing. I would like to hear about the food justice program and maybe how it might relate to what Joy is doing. So Pat, can we get up to that?
Yeah, and I have once again given people the ability to unmute themselves. So you can use your phone's manual unmute, or *6, I believe, will toggle between mute and unmute.
Great. This is Lisa Ash, and my topic is food justice.
Mm-hmm.
Great. First off, hats off to all those great Toastmasters out there doing some wonderful things. My issue is I'm in the food industry, and for the issues that are important to me is kind of a departure, kind of a career shift going into a different area of the food business. And my concern is that once you find what your passion is, you risk people disagreeing with you, with what you what you believe in, and just how to navigate that.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I have identified people to reach out to over these last few years, and know what I need to do. And I'm just kind of holding back from a little bit of just making that leap into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where it's at.
That's where you're at.
Yeah.
How bad is, you were talking about people who disagree with you and a little bit of pushback. How are you doing with that?
It's can be rough because they're people I know and respect, but eventually I've come to the conclusion that not everyone's going to agree with you, and you can still be their friend or a coworker or a colleague. Right.
That's actually something that I'm grappling with my passion with the Better Angels. There is one thing that both political sides agree on, and that's the other side is evil. So if I go up to one side and say, hey, maybe we ought to talk nicer to the other side, I might be accused of siding with the other side. But what I'm really saying is, if you talk nicer with them, they might talk nicer with you. It's just, you're not going to mock and humiliate somebody into agreeing with you. So I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So what do you think your next step is? Is there anybody you can collaborate with, or anything like that?
There is, and it's a professor who teaches a class at UC Berkeley and who's very involved in all these issues. I drafted an email to him just recently. I haven't sent it yet. It's got to be just right. But that might open the world for me to take it to more places, make it more real. So I'm getting there.
Yeah. Now, are you ready to send it, or are you a little bit nervous about sending it?
Yeah. I have, it's kind of like a table topic, beginning, middle, and end. Not too long, too much text in the email, but my message will be to him, with your experience, what would be a next step for me to get more involved? That's what I want to know from him.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing. I mean, looking for a mentor is a great way to start. Another idea is the High Performance Leadership Project too. Have you ever been involved in one of those?
I have not, but many members of my club have. Mm-hmm. Yes.
One of the things I've found is that there's a lot of people, they go right to the Toastmasters activity to do a high performance leadership project. They might do a HPL on a district conference, or they might do an HPL on running a Toastmasters Leadership Institute or something like that. But you can do a high performance leadership project on anything you want if you're building a team. So if you're interested in this and you thought you could get 3, 4 more people to help you with it, and you manage it, that could be a good thing to do, because the HPLs keep you structured, and you get a guidance committee. So you get maybe 4 people that aren't involved in the project, but you talk with them and get advice from them, and then they can help you move forward. And that's something Joy could do too, with what she's interested in. So that might be something for you to consider.
Yeah, I will. I am familiar with it now that you mention it. Yeah, you have some mentors that kind of keep you going.
Right. And then the professor might have some students too that may want to get involved.
Right. Yeah. Oh, some good feedback there. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Steve, can I chime in?
Sure.
Here? Because this whole putting together of this Masterclass program is actually my high performance leadership program, and I have found it very useful. So I just want to corroborate what you were saying. And one of the things that was especially useful is learning how to get somebody on board with what your vision is and what your passion is. So the point was brought up, or the potential barrier was brought up, that other people might disagree with you. And a lot of the high performance leadership program is really about enrolling or engaging other people in your vision and in your passion, using a lot of the skills that you are learning or have learned in Toastmasters, such as how to be very influential. So I also would back up the HPL program as a way to promote what you want to do in the community.
Right.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, good. Do we have another one?
I would invite people on the phone to, once again, just remember to unmute yourself, *6, or your phone's unmute. We have a couple more, or one more in the chat. Someone who's interested in an education system for public nutrition prevention programs. Engaging locals as partner. Wait, this is Joy. Joy, I don't know if you want to contribute what you're saying in the chat here. She's sharing that Commerce Out of Landfill was her HPL program, so it sounds like she's done one.
Oh, okay.
And I already took a lot of time. I came up to Butte County as an outsider and was viewed by a lot of people as an outsider. So managing to get to a point where I'm included in some of the planning up there has been a Toastmaster journey.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Is there anybody else who hasn't spoken yet that would like to say something? Well, I can give a couple more ideas then. How much time do we have, Pat?
About 10 minutes total, so maybe about another 5 for presenting and discussion, and then I'll wrap it up.
Okay, well, I'll give you a couple of ideas of high performance leadership projects, because no matter what your passion is, no matter what you're interested in doing outside of Toastmasters, I'm sure it lends itself to a high performance leadership project. And there was one I did, you know, when I'm not doing Toastmasters, I like to play golf. And I belong to an Italian club, and every year we have a fundraising tournament. And it goes to the scholarship fund that sends children and grandchildren of the members, it gives them a scholarship. And the first HPL I did was that tournament that raised about $12,000. I think 66 people played in the tournament. And it was a good experience because I managed people for registration. I managed people for sponsors. There was the liaison that communicated with the golf course, and just all different types of people. And one thing, there were a few years when I was in district leadership, and people would come up to me and say, does this qualify for an HPL? I need to get an HPL because I want to complete my Distinguished Toastmaster. Does this qualify? And my response was always, how do you feel about it? Is it a project where you're going to manage some people, and then 10 years from now, when somebody asks you what your high performance leadership project was, you want to talk about it? You say, I did this, 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 and this, and this is what we contributed. If it's something you're going to want to talk about in 10 years because it was something you were so passionate about and something that you really made a difference with, that's an HPL. So it worked with me with the Better Angels. It worked with me for the golf tournament. And then I've done one inside of Toastmasters too. So it's what's in your heart that makes a good high performance leadership project. Has anybody else done an HPL on something they're passionate about? Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up now. We talked a lot about heart singing. And the next time you hear your heart sing, I invite you to listen. And I invite you to take the tune it's singing to your Toastmasters meeting and nurture it like you would nurture a garden. Get it ready for prime time. And what you might find out is there are a lot of other people whose hearts are singing the same tune as yours, and that solo that your heart is singing might turn into a chorus. So get out there, everybody, and make things happen.
Thanks so much, Steve. And what's different about a virtual meeting or presentation compared to the in-person, of course, is we don't have the hallmark of Toastmasters, which is the applause, audibly anyway. So I would invite you to please put your clap, your applause, your standing ovation, or whatever you'd like in the chat box to thank Steve for coming and giving us this wonderful presentation on how to take what you have learned or are learning in Toastmasters and apply it in your community and your social settings to do a lot of, not just do a lot of good in the world, but to realize and fulfill that passion that you feel very deeply. So thank you so much, Steve. I'm going to stop sharing your slides, and I'm going to go back to mine because I do want to say just a few things in closing. And so you should see my slides again, and let me just advance here. So just a few logistical things to end. We would like you to contribute feedback. We're going to be sending you a survey. In fact, I'm going to put it in the chat box in a moment here, but it's just 5 questions, and it'll give us valuable information to keep improving on these master classes. We have another one coming up next month. The recording will be available on the District 57 website. Here's a screenshot of the D57 website. There's a tab that says Member Resources, and in that drop-down menu, you'll find something that says Masterclass in Communication and Leadership, and that's where you can go to find all things Masterclass. So future classes, past recordings, that's your one-stop shop. This is the #1 question that I've been getting is, will the recording be available and where? So I'm telling you right here that this is where it will be available probably by tomorrow for this one. And then if you have any questions about anything related to Masterclass, please feel free to contact me at masterclass@d57tm.org. I just realized I don't have this in presentation mode. And then before we wrap up, I wanted to do a little plug for our next Masterclass. Will be presented by Venkat Raman from District 57 also. He's our newsletter editor, and he's going to give a talk on how to use a club newsletter to inform and impress, and I'm sure you can take those skills to other parts of your life as well, not just Toastmasters. That's going to be on Monday, April 20th from 7 to 8 p.m. I did get another question about the timing of these master classes. They won't all be on Mondays. They won't all be at 7 p.m. It's just what's worked currently. To register for his masterclass, you can go to that very same website, d57tm.org/masterclass. And with that, I would just like to extend a very sincere thank you to all of you who participated, particularly all of you who stayed till the end, and especially Steve, our wonderful presenter today. And we hope to see you back next month for our next one. Thanks, everyone, and good night.